What I want to talk about for a couple of minutes is the front page of the Call newspaper, which used to exist in Perth. It was somewhat like the Mirror. They got into the saucy side of life. And so on January the 2nd, 1922, a Bristol tourer made a heavy landing on the Esplanade. The damage was not worthwhile reporting, according to Norman Brearley, who got on the scene very quickly and had the wreckage cleared away in a quiet fashion. 10 days later, it was reported in the Call newspaper. It wasn't, in fact, reported in any other newspaper. The pilot of the aircraft happened to be a young bloke by the name of Charles Kingsford-Smith, who hadn't become famous at that stage. And so the accident wasn't reported in any aviation records. Really didn't advise people in the East of the accident. Not recorded in the annals of WA Airways, not in any of the books about Smithy's life, not covered in WA newspaper, not covered in the Daily News. And so do you think Norman would have had a bit of influence on the newspapers? I think so. Because if we look at the newspaper, it gives a fairly good run through that. It happened about midday on January the 2nd, returning on a passenger flight. The wreckage was cleared up in a hurry, and they're wondering what happened to the other newspapers in Perth, and that they didn't mention it at all. So this is the accident. I came across these images on Trove, and that's the accident not worthwhile reporting, picture number 1 in Trove, and that's picture number 2. Hardly worthwhile reporting. I'm guessing that the accident took place there on Brearley's city landing ground. The timeline was that on December 5th, 1921, they started Australia's first airline flying out of Jordan. They'd only gone an hour and a half, and there was a fatal accident. And Brearley was trying to tell everyone that flying was safe, and justifiably so. People had their doubts about it, and this was the first official venture into aviation in Western Australia. 3.5 weeks later, this accident happened on the Esplanade. He was still saying that flying was safe, I'm sure. And on the 22nd of February, the new system got underway. So thank you to the Call newspaper for bringing that to light. That book on Smithy by McCarthy is one of the best I've read on Smithy. It has an interview with Kingsford-Smith's first wife in Western Australia, the only interview she ever gave, and it's in that book, and it gives you an insight into WA, which we normally wouldn't have heard about. Bob Murphy, put up your hand. His father drove a truck for Charles Kingsford-Smith at Thornycroft here in Western Australia. In 1927, at an imperial conference, they decided that the airmail system, or mail system, throughout the British Commonwealth should be speeded up. They looked at all sorts of ways to do it. And there was no air service between England and Australia, and they decided that they could save time in mail from England to Australia and back again. They could save about a week if they put an air service across Australia. So Brearley tendered for that, and he got the tender. So that was the reason for him buying 4 DH-66 Hercules aircraft. Ships used to arrive on Tuesday morning with mail. They would offload what they could for Western Australia. The ship would then take another 4 days to get to Adelaide, where the mail was distributed by mainly by rail. So the idea was to put a 2-day link instead of that 4-day link with the ship. So that was what Brearley was up to, saving about a week in return mail, which was vital in those days. When the Hercules arrived, people are still trying to decide on the route that it would have taken to get to Maylands Aerodrome. It wouldn't have gone on Canning Highway because large parts of that were still bush tracks, and so they assumed that it came up the Stirling Highway through the city and then out to Mayland. That was the first one arriving with advertising on the box. These are rare photographs recently come to light from a private collection. You can see that there's two trucks there, maybe a Thornycroft. And the one at the back I don't think provided any motive power, but it provided steerability, so that if it was pivoted at the front and at the back truck, they could manoeuvre it around some very tight corners. So there's another one of it. I've got a funny feeling that's going through Fremantle. I've seen those buildings in the back and they remind me of Fremantle in the early days. That's the aircraft being assembled. That's the first day, so the ship would arrive on Tuesday morning. The mail would be driven to Mayland Aerodrome in the PMG vehicle and flown to Forest where they would overnight. That's a very early photograph of Forest. You can see the hangar there and the hostel to one side. On the second day, Forest, Wednesday morning to Adelaide. That's the dining room. I spent a lot of time out there in the early 1960s and the furniture was still exactly the same. And that's the Hercules getting out of Forest. So the contract was set up on pounds weight. Really was going to receive 380 pounds if he could average 600 pounds weight per trip. And then in excess was 2 and 8 pence per pound. If he could arrange 800 pounds, then it would be 760 plus 12 and 8 pence. So Brearley, being a cunning man, decided that he would set up a deal with Joseph Charles, the real estate agent in Perth. You probably have heard the name Joseph Charles, Lim off Duffy. But Joseph Charles was a man running his own business in those days. And between he and Brearley, they set up a deal where he would advertise West Australian properties in South Australia. His first shipment of catalogues, printed on heavyweight paper, was 502, then 3,000, then another 3,000, then another 3,000. And the federal government decided this was going a little bit too far, because they checked on the averages and there was 1,300 pounds of freight going that way, mail going that way, and only a couple of hundred coming back again. So they decided that they'd have to change things. 256 coming back this way. They smelt a rat and they changed the system. That is a photograph in St George's Terrace of the advertising material coming out of Joseph Charles' office into the horse-drawn carriage to take it to the post office and then to Mayland. That's some of it there. And later on, the DH-84 Dragon arrived, and that set outside the Ozone Hotel, which would have got to Maylands via the same route. So there we are, a couple of old photographs shown up in recent times, and I was only too happy to show them to you.